So, this is part two of my story. So, I will be talking here a little bit about my father and his choices early on that kind of probably affect me till this day. So, like, I'm going back to what I said in my previous video was that my father was the crown jewel of the household. So, it only made sense that he grew up as such, with such adoration and love from my grandmother, which probably brought about the jealousy of the rest of the family members, relatives of my family. But I do recall a few memories of him being in the picture of just probably in the mornings before he went to work. So that's like probably the only time I probably did see him in my life was just maybe once in a while I would see him before he would go off to work. But I knew already early on that I knew he worked hard. He managed to buy a house, save up and buy a house with my grandmother's help around the time that I was born. The family itself had already split by then. I remember at one point that all my aunts were nearby. But then, of course, with age, you expect your your children to eventually expand out and begin to live their own lives as well. So my aunts, by the time my father did buy his own home, did slowly begin to move out and start to live their own lives. Some of them got married, and others have had their children, are starting to have children, technically speaking. By now, I have been alone for about about 5+ years. So, like most Asians, he would start to attend church at this time. He probably thought he would find someone this way, thinking that those that attend church are good people. So I, as well, at the time, had no mother figure, even as a child, besides my grandmother, who was probably the only guidance and mother figure I looked up to at this time, at this age. So it was about a year or two after my father started attending church did I meet his first flame after the divorce between my biological mother. She was a few years older than him, but I do recall her being extremely kind to some degree. She really had two grown children at the time, from what I was informed of by by my grandmother when I was a bit older, when she did tell me a little bit more about her. Because as a child, I wouldn't really understand like that concept as well. So, but she wasn't really liked, though. I will be honest with that. My grandparents really did not like her that much. She was considered an alcoholic and was uncontrollable at times. She just couldn't control herself. She probably showed affection to me, but in the backside, she probably hated me. And often I wondered what she had in mind when she would sit next to me with a book in hand and read me bedtime stories. Because I do remember her coming in to my room at night with a book, and she would read me stories at night before bedtime. So I really thought about that. It makes me kind of emotional to think about it. Like, did she really hate me that much because I was not her blood? So, and what wrong did I commit for her to hate me because of that very fact? So there was another incident not long after my father and this woman had settled in together. She did move into the picture. I remember her distinctively moving in, and they would be together in the room. So I knew that when she moved in, it was there was a little bit of a slight difference with how the environment was. With my grandparents also in the picture, they also lived in the same household, which usually is what you expect in Asian culture, right? You'd have several generations living together under the same household. So she would keep the same routine of work, and by nightfall, she would come to my bedroom, read me bedtime stories. And as a child, I was probably really naive at the time that I really wanted a mother figure in my life, and I really loved her company. She she played the role well, and there's one time that she did take me out to get ice cream one day, and we drove pretty late into the night. I would sit in the back silently watching through the window while I had ice cream in my hand. And then the car slowly came to a stop. I remember the car came to a stop. And I looked up at her, to why we stopped in the middle of nowhere. She seemed to be looking out of her window, contemplating a lot of things. I remember her face expressions would be staring outside and staring at me, like she wasn't sure what to do. She looked unhappy for some reason and depressed to some degree before she really did look at me again. And I felt like it was kind of a strange sensation the way she looked at me this last time that she looked at me before she started the car again and began to drive me back home. And then I found out later on that she actually wanted to throw me away. That day she took me out to ice cream. She didn't want me here. I was a hindrance and she wanted to throw me away. But then the marriage did break off not too long after that, and my father and this woman left the picture, so I had no mother again in my life. It really, really boggled my mind at this, even till now, like what people, why people do the things they do and how it affects, how it affects that person in the future. Even affects me till this day, like how I thought she was a wonderful individual to only in turn be someone much more devious than you would anticipate, right? So this is going to be the end of part two. Let me know if you've gone through some similar circumstances as well down below.